a little bit of, okay, perfect timing. So some of you guys are here today to really figure out how to relate the message to the seller that having incentives, commissions, compensations for the buyer agent's important.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can add that in too. Just the
Same
conversations.
thing. Okay, great.
Yeah, conversations
Great.
surrounding it. Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, Kelly.
Conversations with buyers that are just cold calling to go look at a house the first time they've not met you, so you haven't built that rapport with them, how to have a conversation with them about the changes and getting them to sign a buyer's agreement when they just have no rapport, they haven't, personally met you yet, they're just cold calling you to look at a house.
Okay. So kind of meeting with that.
Cold calls.
Yep. So I'm not sure how deep into all of that we're gonna get today, because today's more workshopping around that buyer presentation and the seller presentation, but it does sound like a conversation needs to be had with some role play, which if we have time today, we can definitely go into that because it's something I love doing. So we can, if y'all know me, do I love doing role play? Yes. So that's something that we might either have to make time for or build another class around the conversations around that. Fair? Okay.
For those of you who don't have buyer listing presentations, what are you looking, like, what are
Yeah,
your,
what are
what
you
are
all
your
looking for?
questions? Cause I mean, we have a little bit of both, but like, this is pretty much making sure that you are stepping into those appointments, making sure that you are giving your value, your information, everything, right? Yeah.
I want to know how someone coming in new who has no like past clients, that whole sheet that says, oh, she's a great agent. How do you fill that in?
Okay.
And we're
Testimonials.
Yeah.
not having any of that.
New agent testimonials.
Huh.
Okay. Anything else? No? Like, yes.
So I've looked at the examples like in Command, the templates that you can follow, but like, how do you, take that and make it more like personalized, so it's not like you're reading from a template or something.
Finally, something we prepared. Yes.
Yes.
We got you, Destiny.
Personalized presentation.
Yeah, personalizing them. And something I'm just gonna kind of poke out there is there's all these different examples, right? They've got the testimonials, they've got all these different things. You got to pick and pull the pieces that fit you for who you are and the story you're telling and what your narrative is. If you don't have any testimonials, and we'll kind of get into how you can get some of those, even if you don't have real estate testimonials, they can always speak to character, right? When you don't have those, maybe we omit those pieces and we add those pieces as we get them, right? One testimonial is better than none, right? So could you get one? That if you've had that one interaction, that one transaction, make sure you get a review and a testimonial from that.
Well, and not even just if it's real estate related. I mean, you have probably worked with somebody else in the past, and that shows your work ethic, right? Or how you worked well with others, or how you helped somebody at some point. So you can always grab testimonials from somebody that you had previously worked with.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I have used, like given a review for an inspector and they did the same for me too. So it doesn't have to be just clients.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that past client. Could it be a former employer even? Yeah, they can speak to your character, they can speak to who you are and why it would be a benefit for you to work with them. So yeah, we're gonna get there. And we kind of got there. So here we go.
And we understand that this is a huge one, and
Yeah.
that's pretty much, that is the main point of this. And of course, we took away some great things from yesterday with things to make sure that you are including with bringing to your appointments, especially with making sure you have those buyer agreements signed and everything before you drive and show, making sure that you feel prepared for that as well.
Yeah, I would have to say the biggest thing I took away from family reunion this year was that you have to have a presentation, because we are not in a speed-based market, we're in a skill-based market. So you have to show up as a professional, right? When you show up with a pretty little package with a bow on it, it's who you are and it's on paper and it's for somebody else to see, right? Because you have to compete. Everything you do is competing against somebody else, whether you think so or not. So yeah, that was kind of what really got us like, ooh, people really need to build those skills. And part of that skill is building a buyer or seller presentation. So it's frozen. So.
There we go.
Let me ask you this, why is having a listing presentation so important, right? So we kind of talked a little bit about it. Outside of these things, right, it's gonna show you the expectations, show you the marketing plan, right? When somebody wants to hire you to sell their house, Carrie, they want to know what your marketing plan is, right? That's like probably the first question they ask. Okay, outside of these things, the valuation, showcasing who you are, your experience, what makes you unique, what other things are important about having a presentation?
Well, now, especially with all the changes, is setting the expectation for how does compensation work?
Mhm.
And how are we willing to cooperate, et cetera. So I think it's gonna be a huge part of that presentation. So we're gonna have to educate them.
Yeah, and that could feel weird, right? Because we maybe weren't doing that, or we weren't doing it as, I don't want to say transparent, but you know, we were just saying, hey, our percentage is this, and this is what it is, and we're just gonna move on. Now we have to say our percentage is this, and this is what we do with that. And we actually have to dig into explaining where the commission compensation money goes, right? Yeah, it's definitely part of the value proposition. And I would venture to say that offering compensation to the buy side, if you're the listing agent, is part of your marketing plan, yeah? I mean, number one, we're going to incentivize a buyer's agent to bring us a qualified buyer who's going to do what, right? And then we get into that. So yeah, that's a huge part of it. And I think that's where this room is as full as it is, especially with some of our seasoned agents, is you're looking for some new examples and some new ways, right? Like, are we doing like a menu of services? And during the menu of services, which we've talked about in group coaching, you know, what are the different differentiations? That word's really hard for me. To be able to say at this percent, I do all of these activities, and at this percent, I do these ones, right? And maybe there is a portion that is at this percent, we don't incentivize a buy side. And in my opinion, that really hurts the whole industry. So I wouldn't go that direction, but you guys are business owners and you're gonna operate the way you will. So we can go through best practices.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of make a note here. So these aren't really, I mean, it says like experience, professionalism, and value, but like your market value is also showing that you are a professional in this market, right? Like sharing like this is where things are at. This is averages on market in this area or neighborhoods and things like that. You're bringing that to the table and that's showing that experience and professionalism.
I also think timelines are very important to make sure you
Yeah.
have in your listing presentation, because we just expect all of those things. It's normal for us. It is not normal for them. So we try to always give them a timeline up front. You know, once this happens, this is what you should expect. And that way, they're also planning in their mind for how fast that moves.
Yeah.
Or how slow that moves, depending on their perspective.
Absolutely. One of my favorite pieces that I see in a lot of buyer and seller presentations is a flow chart of you start here we are today, we're interviewing, and then this is what happens next. And it's the whole process, which also keeps them in the know, right? So what happens, I'll ask my seasoned agents that have had several deals, when they don't know what happens next, what are you getting a lot of?
Questions.
A lot of
Phone calls.
questions, a lot of phone calls.
You should not be getting phone calls.
You should be
We should be
making them.
professionals. We should not be getting the, why haven't I heard, why isn't this taking place? We should be the one making those phone calls to them.
100%. You need to be proactive, not reactive. Now, will you have that super analytical type that maybe is just gonna ask the questions regardless? Absolutely. But you have already set the standard of here's the series of events that's about to take place. So Carrie, you're 100% right. It's having it in front of them and making those proactive calls, because you're not answering the silly questions like, when is the photographer coming and when is this and when is that? Like, you've already done all of that. So great points.
Yeah, that goes with the process flow chart,
Yeah.
right?
That's one of my favorite pieces. I mean, some people are like, here's my broker metrics and here's my flow chart. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's great. That works for some people. But what I do see is a lot of agents who just get out there and they wing it, right? Wing it, you're gonna crash and burn in this market, okay? Even if you have been that person that shows up really well. Yes, is it a conversation? Every time. It's a relationship building piece. But when you don't have that presentation to back you up, your professionalism, in my opinion, drops a little. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And isn't it better to always be prepared? Who showed up for that exam and they weren't prepared and it was a super stressful thing, right? Or taught a class and they weren't prepared, it was super stressful. Lots of anxiety. When you show up prepared, like you studied and you were ready, you're gonna nail it and you're gonna be super comfortable in this conversation because you have already looked at everything. Make sense? Cool.
Yeah, cool. Cassie, you just said a clear outline to conversation. Can you unmute and just clarify that? Was that a question that you were wanting to come over today? Or like for us to come over, to go over today?
We haven't had enough caffeine.
I haven't had any.
Is the volume on?
Okay,
Tell her just chat it back.
yep.
Okay,
It shows
All right.
muted up there in the right corner.
that's us.
Okay.
Yeah, that's this one. So this is what's unmuted for the, yeah. It's a lot of technology, guys. Okay.
All right, let's bring up our
Panelists.
panelists today. Trey and Blake, come on down. It's like Price is Right.
I know.
We're prepared.
I hope you're prepared.
We are. I didn't know if that was.
That'd be pretty poor showing if you weren't prepared today.
Yeah.
I thought we had more time to be prepared because I'm gonna be out alone.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Actually, for you to sit in the back.
Yes, all right, come have a seat and then tell us who you are and why you're here today.
Can't really answer the why. I'm just kidding, I can. My name is Blake. I'm the rainmaker of the Property Gurus. We sold, I don't know, I guess about 450 houses at this point. And we have an interesting look at what a listing presentation and buyer's presentation should be. And I'm just here to share that with you guys.
Love that. What about you, Trey?
I'm Trey Watson with the home team. And I don't know what all you want out of me, but we've closed about 7 million so far this year and
Awesome.
are having our best year that we've ever had. Even
Fantastic.
kind of a crazy market. And so, yeah, here to talk about how to talk to people.
You're here to have that conversation. Okay, love it. So thank you guys for being here today. We got a couple questions for you. Huh?
I'm just ready for it.
Oh, okay.
So ready.
They were sent these beforehand, so.
All right,
don't
so
worry.
our first question is, why do you feel it's important to show up prepared?
So.
Which sounds like a very elementary question, but I'd love to hear what these guys say.
Yeah, so two things like you just talked about. When you're prepared, you know your stuff. And if we're expected to help our clients to the best of our ability, we should know our stuff and we should show up knowing our stuff from the beginning and not just wing it. I think that the other thing, in this time period, we're gonna be competing for listings. And when you show up prepared, you show up confident, just like anything else in life, like you just said. And that our clients feel that if we're confident about what we're talking about and what we know, that will bleed over and that's just gonna help us to earn their trust and help them understand that, hey, we are professionals, we do know what we're talking about. And so it's kind of a feel thing of you show up and you know what you're doing, they're gonna know what, you know. what
It
you're
gives them
doing.
comfort.
Yeah, absolutely it does. So.
Awesome.
yeah.
Anything to add to that, Blake?
You can ask a couple questions first,
You gonna ask me questions or them?
them.
Yeah, okay.
So I know there's a lot of change and stuff happening. So just so we know, who's been in the business less than a year? And who's been in it less than like 5 years? Just so I know. Let's see if I know you've been around.
100 years.
100 years.
Just feels like.
That's why he needs a hug.
So I want to make sure this is valuable. So are you guys here to figure out what to do in a listing presentation? Or are you guys trying to figure out how to do it?
Both.
Both, okay. So anybody just trying to figure out one or the other, or is it both for everyone? Okay. Beautiful. I'm gonna make sure that we touch it both then. Showing up prepared is important, and I think it's important to know that being prepared doesn't mean you have to take an hour to do something. You can take 10 minutes and be prepared for a phone call. You can jump into Command, look at the notes from your last conversation that you had with them because you called them quarterly, and you can review those, and then you can be prepared for that phone call. Same thing with a listing appointment, and when you systematize it, it doesn't take super long. My biggest aversion to being prepared in anything was how long it took ahead of time, because I wanted to spend my time doing other things. So it doesn't have to take long. But it's important because it shows your competence and your confidence. If you walk into something, even if you're good at winging it, very good at winging it, there's a huge difference in how I feel about my competence if I know what houses have sold. I can be confident and walk into it because I just am. If you take 10 to 15 minutes, you will show up confident and competent. confident and competent. Did I say that right? Okay, cool. And they know that. They know that a ton. I would say that's all.
Yeah. All right, my next question is, we hear a lot about like these pre-listing packets or confirmations to appointments, things like that. Do y'all send anything before your appointment to them?
Texts and calls.
What do
I-
your texts and calls look like?
Essentially getting the information that I need to be prepared and confirming the appointment. I think there's so many times buyers are notorious for just not showing up for appointments if we set an appointment in the office. And so confirming that appointment, A, make sure that you're still engaged with them, and B, doesn't waste your time for them to just not show up and you're prepare for something. When we talk about love languages, gift giving is like below the building, basically, for me. I'm horrible at it. I just don't think about it. I don't think about sending cards or gift cards or thank you notes or whatever it is. We're trying to do that in the team, but it's not my thing. So if I can show, I'm a big believer that if you can, A, show them that you care and show them that you're knowledgeable and a professional, that's all that's needed. The other stuff is extra. So I don't send anything if that's what we're after, like a physical deal, but texts and calls, checking in, and for like a listing specifically, getting the information about their house so I can do
Like the
some
details, the
comparables.
specifics that you maybe can't know on here.
Yeah,
So Trey, do you use an intake sheet, like a client information sheet? So when you say you call and you get this, do you get the same information every time?
got a notebook. Honestly, I've got 2 notebooks. I've got a task notebook that I write down for all my stuff that I need to do for the day. And then I have a notes notebook, and that's all of my brain dump into that. And so as I'm talking to them on the phone, it's the basics, right? I mean, when we're doing a CMA on a property, I need to know how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what's the square footage, what else is extra, how big's the lot, all that stuff. So I'm getting that from them, and it's hilarious. Nobody knows the square footage of their house. Whenever you ask them, they'll say it's 3,500 square feet, and I pull it up on the assessor site and it's 1,200. And we just don't know. Like, it's a very real thing that happens. And so part of doing that, to answer your question directly, no, I don't have an intake sheet for me to fill out. I do once I get the listing and I send it to Peyton, my transaction coordinator. I have a whole sheet that I fill out for her so she knows what to go put in. But for me, it's writing notes and remembering them so that then I can go do the CMA, and I'll write notes on like the comps. My CMA, I'm literally just printing out comps, but I'm writing notes down on that as well. So does that,
Yeah.
it directly
I
answer your
mean,
question?
we don't either, but I know a lot of agents use where they get the same information on everyone. So just kind of curious.
No, it's a
I
good
liked that
question.
idea.
Yeah.
I like that.
Do you
I
think that
for
would
a
be
newer
beneficial?
agent, I think
Yeah.
for a newer agent or somebody who maybe did not have to have such a skill set over the last few years. I don't do residential, I do commercial, but I do have,
Mhm.
I don't necessarily have a sheet, but I ask the same questions.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so it's just second nature, but I think it would be very helpful to have an intake sheet for a buyer or for a listing to where because in order to show up confident and competent, if you didn't touch all these bases, they're gonna eat you alive.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because they're expecting you're walking in with at least a base knowledge about their home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's, this is a do as I say, not as I do thing, but if you had that sheet to where you could ask the same questions over and over and over, especially starting out, that would be amazing. So if somebody has that already, share it to everybody else. As you do it enough times, you understand who's on the deed, right? Or who's buying the house, who's gonna be on the note. So we know that we need to have all of those decision makers there. I touch on timeline on the phone conversation before the appointment, so I can get a general understanding of their, the motivation conversation that we'll go into here in a little bit, I know. But understanding what their timeline is, so I know the sense of urgency that I need to act within, right? Is this a listing appointment that I can schedule next week if I wanna go play golf today, or do I need to get out there now, right? Same thing with buyers as well. What's the motivation? What's the timeline? I'll touch on that a little bit, and then tell me about the physical features, so I know when I'm doing my research and I'm getting prepared, telling them on the phone, right? So I'm kind of sticking this in and saying, hey, so I can be prepared for our meeting, tell me a little bit about your property. And so I can get those physical aspects. And so then I know going into the appointment, when I set the comps down in front of them, and I'll pretty much take all of the comps in the neighborhood, depending on the neighborhood, say, hey, here's all the comps. I know what points I need to touch on to be really, really specific, whether it's square footage or bathroom, bedroom count, stuff like that. So does that answer the question I ran?
Yeah, just to interject a little bit, because I
Sure.
did like your little, the intake forms and
Yeah.
stuff. You can easily make that digital. You can do a Google form for it. And then it also shows like, what are they missing? Like, what do they not have or what do they not know? And then you're even more prepared because you're like, okay, I gotta find these things and then I can educate them. And again, you're coming as the professional
Mhm.
educating them.
Yeah.
So,
And if you haven't done a listing before, I mean, come talk to any of us that have, and we'll tell you what the information is that we want to know.
Well, and I'm glad that you don't have something you send, because Trey's been in the business long enough that he has his system up here and it works for him, and that's great. What his system works may not work for you, or you, or you, right? So I do think, he didn't realize we were gonna do this to him today, but I do think you could benefit from having that system a little more buttoned up.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, that's why Peyton and I have met, so.
Yes, all of us
He's
can.
got more than he knows he has, actually, so.
All of us can.
There's, yeah, so Blake, same question to you. What do you do ahead of your appointment? Do you send anything, or is it a conversation, or what?
So I wanna jump back just a second. You have systems. You just, if you don't realize that you have systems, you haven't written them down yet. So like, what we're talking about, I don't know how many lead gen levers there are, but when it comes to how you can have a successful listing appointment, it's crazy how many different ways you can do it. And so there are two types of people. There are people that are gonna want the data for sure, and there are people that don't care about the data, just talk to me, connect with me. So your listing appointment should cover both. And so we're talking about hows and whats, that's why. As far ahead of time, besides a ton of follow-up over the years before they're ready, I think that part's important. We call it our compatibility phone call. And so I got this from a book about 6 months ago and I decided to try it and it works really well. And I can send this to you guys if you want it. But this is me just trying to write down what I was saying and the way to do it. So what we send is a specific phone call that is us telling them what we need, trying to figure out what they want. And then we're not gonna talk price or strategy because that's not what this phone call's for. It's to see if we can actually work well together. We have missed out on some business, so what I'm about to say here, we are in a position where we do not need like the listing. We don't have to have it. So if you're newer or if you don't have money, do not do what I'm talking about. Sign the dang listing and work for whatever it is so that you can get money, okay? As you get better though, you can kind of turn things around and work with people that you want to work with. I think that's huge. And so the compatibility phone call is very easy. It's a 30-minute thing that the ISA sets for me, or even if it's somebody from my sphere that calls, it's just, hey, I want to make a phone call because we're about to go into a transaction, which means I have to be your agent, not your friend. Okay, because I've been following up with them for however long. But so we basically talk for about whatever for 15 minutes. So I can reference a command and I can go and see like, oh, this guy plays video games, or he's a Chiefs fan, or he's a Broncos fan, or whatever it is. So I know how to start the conversation. That's all the preparation I do for this phone call. I go into Command or Facebook and I look stuff up. But as we're talking, I literally just stop halfway through and be like, hey, I think this is going really well, but there's a couple of things that might trip us up. And they're like, oh, okay, because it's a fun conversation, right? And I said, do you mind if I just get those out in the open? I wrote this down because I don't want to miss it. And if anybody has questions, you guys take photos of this or whatever.
I did take down all of your
We will
names,
have
so
some
we'll
recap
send
stuff
you
here.
a recap. Okay.
So they say yes every time. And so what we just did was tell them, there are things that I need from you, right? Because when you're working together, you have needs and so do they. And so it needs to be explicitly stated. Because if what they need to do is sell the house and there's no way you're gonna get paid on it, you need to know that as soon as possible instead of later. That doesn't mean you can't help them, it just means you won't get paid for helping them. That's something that you should know if it's gonna happen or not. The next part is, thank you, I just wanna let you know I'm a full service, full fee agent. That's what we do. We charge 6%.
All commissions are negotiable.
All commissions are negotiable. As a team, we charge 6% plus $350. Of that 3%, I keep 3% and $350. And I give the other 3% to whoever brings the buyer. The number one thing that happens next is people are like, you split the commission? And I know we're not gonna go down this rabbit hole, but most of them don't understand what's going on. So just know that you know more than they know almost right away because you guys know how it works. Then I'm quiet. You guys know how many objections I get over this when I say that? Is that gonna be an issue for us at all? Only issues if they actually have a problem. Now, we work with a lot of our sphere. But we've done this with cold calls, so these are people I've never talked before. Which leads into the next part, is another thing before I meet you with the property, so before I go see it, I need you to hire me as your agent. Here's why. I need to know why you want to go where you want to go. And I need to know a lot of information, and I need an agency agreement between the two of us so that you are a client of mine, not a customer. Because I'm gonna spend the time. This is before I see the house, and this is what I like that you said, because I wanna do it before we see the house, because I forget who said this, but 8 pounds of ground beef is not the same price or the same as 8 pounds of filet. They're both meat, but they're not the same. And so if I actually haven't seen the house, how can I actually serve you the best? I can give you a price, but I'll change it the minute I get there. And I'd rather just not start off on that note. No hesitations, guys. I'm literally getting documents signed before I see properties, which is neat, just because we're asking for it. And the last thing is that I don't answer phone calls after 8 p.m. This is a me thing. I need me time. I have a wife. We have friends. We have things that we want to do. I will never let you drown. But after 8 p.m., I'm only going to check and get back with you on the things that really, really matter right now. And in real estate, after 8 p.m., there's not a lot of those things. Like if you have a house fire, you need to call the fire department, not me. Like, I'll be your call first, one call in the morning. So that's what we do ahead of time. That's the biggest thing that we send. And so it's a phone call. It's not a document. It's nothing like that, but I do take notes on that. And then when I show up to the property, I summarize the notes. They're like, yes, it's already signed. And this is my favorite part and why I wish people had these conversations up front. Let's say this is an example, but let's say that you're a buyer's agent that maybe gets the documents signed right before they write an offer on a house, right? It's our job to have our client's best interest first. I did it too. So you're good.
Nobody's ever done that in this room.
I did it the other day and I was like, what are you doing? If you're the only thing and the price conversation is the only thing between them and getting the house that they want, and you don't have that conversation first, you're basically saying, hey, I'm gonna get paid 3% or whatever the percent that you're gonna get paid. And in order for you to write on this house as fast as possible, you just need to agree to this. They don't actually have time to object. And so when you go to the listing appointment, when you go to do all of these things, what's the one thing that everyone is waiting for you to do, especially if you don't know them? It's close them. When are we gonna have this conversation? What are we gonna do? How does this work? We already did it on the phone. So like when I show up to the listing appointment, it is literally, how do you think we should sell this house? I have some knowledge, you have some ideas. Let's create a plan together. And then the only thing that comes out of that is literally, it's an app that I have in here. It's called Good Notes. I have a pen and paper and I write down all the stuff they said. I write down all the notes that I need, and then I get back with them with a timeline. And then that is what we're doing moving forward. They can change it as much as they want. I might fire them if they change it a ton, but like they can change it as much as they want. This ensures that we're working together. And I go all long-winded on that because it came from that very, very first part and it set the tone for the rest of it.
So what price do you put in on that listing agreement if you've already got it signed before you've seen the home? Or do
I'll
you
answer
leave it
this.
blank and get initials later?
So we leave it blank.
Okay, I'm just asking because that's gonna come up.
Yeah.
Because part of that listing agreement is that established price
So until that price is there, technically, I don't believe the agreement.
exists. Yeah.
But they don't know that, nor do they care about that, right? It is you seeing if they're gonna commit to you or not. And if most of them do, then it's good to go. But we do that and then we go back in and then we adjust it so that we know. Because we agree on the price together on the way that we do it. I don't tell you what it is. I give you a range based off the proceeds. And if it's enough money for you to sell it, this is gonna be great. If it's not enough money to sell it, I'll find another person. It's my problem if I can't find people that have needs. It's not theirs. So.
I think class is over. I think we got everything we needed from these two guys just now. Just kidding. So something you said, that I heard, it was you were a full fee, full what?
Full service.
Full fee, full service agent. I'd write that down, friends. Like,
That's actually the name of a book. This literally came from a book. I kind of tweaked the words some, but it's by Chris Voss and someone else. So it's the author of Never Split the Difference. If anybody's read that book, but it's specifically tailored to real estate agents. So
That's great.
It's really cool.
So you literally take the hardest conversations we feel that we're having and have them right off the bat. Like, let's rip that Band-Aid off. I'm not talking about what we're gonna pay a buyer's agent. I'm not talking about what I charge. I am going in to go talk about you and your house. So that's really cool because you just set the tone right off the bat. There's a lot of agents that come in and then they want to have all those conversations during the listing appointment, and that's a lot, you know? So I like that. So far, before we go on, what kind of questions do you guys have?
What percentage of the potential listings that you have are comfortable signing the listing agreement before you meet with them?
It's 93% right now, which is crazy, because I expect it to be like 40.
So do you still meet with the 7% that wasn't willing, or do you just say that's not
Totally.
compatible?
Totally.
Okay.
So in the book, just to kind of do a book pitch really fast, they talk about something called the favorite and the fool. And I really like this a lot because this is true to my experience. They know who they're going to list with if they have somebody in mind. And so the reason we do this is to see, do you already have somebody you're going to list with? Because if so, I'm just going to save the time. Like, and I'm going to make some assumptions there, so I will lose some business in doing so. But most of the time they don't. So if they don't, it's great. But if you ask them on that phone call, you know, who are you going to use? We do this in follow-up all the time. Have you met anybody that you would use in the event that you had a real estate need? If they say yes, we're like, who is it? Like, when we're genuinely asking, because if they're not going to tell us, odds are you're the fool. They're withholding information from you for one reason or the other, but they have somebody they want to use. They might not think they've decided on that. But most of the time, they wait too long to get the house ready. They forget to do all these things. And then when it comes down to it, they're not actually making a decision anymore. They're just doing something as fast as possible, which is going to be whoever that they knew. So the compatibility phone call from a team side, we're doing that to see if, do we actually have a chance at this? Are we the favorite or are we the fool? Because in my first year, I was the fool a lot. I showed up with all the information. I showed up with all the stuff I was supposed to have. I educated them and they went with their brother or they went with their sister
At the price you gave them.
at the price that was talked about, yeah.
I would say that's a hard thing is when you give all the information, like even a for sale by owner, and they're like, great advice, thanks, Blake. Boop, 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 boop.
And they go do
Well,
that.
I mean, as I was listening to you talk, the one thing that you're doing is you're preserving your time. Because there's no reason to do all of that prep work, go out there, you give them the price, which, I mean, I would caution, never give your price without an agency agreement, but that's just my own soapbox. But you're not gonna go and give them all of your intellectual, you're a professional, you're not gonna go give them all your intellectual property without knowing that they're all in.
So if I realize I'm the fool or they tell me that they're gonna use somebody else, I'll give them the information. Because I appreciate them being honest with me. And I do want what's best for them. I already have the information, I already did the work. Use this to double check with your agent or whoever, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Are you asking that question about have you met someone that you would use if you have a real estate need? Are you asking that on the phone before you meet with them, or you're asking that when you're in face to face?
So very good question. That's mostly follow-up. So like on that compatibility phone call, if they're being super guarded and kind of like, ugh. So like really fast, like you guys have needs, okay? That exists. You have income goals that you need. You have money that you need. The only way that you can connect with somebody, like truly connect with them, is they have a need that's stated and you have a need that's stated. Then people can consciously say, yeah, this seems fair. This works. And so if they're not willing to say, here, this is what I need, this, and it's being this like, hey, I'm trying to tell you what I need. You seem to be listening, but you're not really telling me what you need. You're withholding something for some reason. And I don't have a script for this, but I do address it because it kind of depends on how the conversation's going. But most of the time, if they're being shiesty, I think is the best way to say that, I'll just ask them. And some of them are, and these people do exist. They literally want to talk to as many agents as possible to gather as much data as possible before they make a decision. I now know at this point in the career, we're probably not a good fit for each other. Because you're gonna keep asking me data questions, and as you see from our listing appointment, I'll give you some data, but like, I really don't know how you wanna get there. We'll agree on the plan together.
And I think if I can add on to that too, why the follow-up before your actual appointment is so important is being able to understand personality type. And this is one of the most important skills in any sales business, is understanding personality type. And if you can do that, you can suit their needs so much better. like you said, I'm the same way, I'm not an analytical brain at all. And so I know if I'm talking to an analytical person, I have to slow things down so much that it's gonna feel uncomfortable to me, and it gets easier with practice, but by having that phone calls and text and check-ins and stuff like that, you understand personality type, so you can see this person's super direct and they don't want the details, and I'm gonna bore them and I'm gonna lose with them if I give them too many details. Then you have the mega analytical people, and you're probably gonna have to go over things 2 or 3 times with them until they feel comfortable with all of it. That's what's so incredibly important about talking to them before the appointment, because then I show up in person and I do things differently. I show up and I sign the listing agreement in person, and I do those things in person. I have all the conversations in person because I feel like I can connect better in person. So it's just, let's get to the house, let's get in person, and I can connect with them there. But I understand what their personality type is before I get there, so I know how to act. And this profile is like mega I. So if I show up and this person's mega C and reserved and quiet and analytical, and I come into the house screaming and yelling and hugging, it's gonna freak some people out a little bit. So I've got to.
Don't go screaming.
Yeah, but then I know if I'm dealing with another I can go in and shoot party poppers off, and it's a whole different thing. I have the marching band following me in, and it's a whole different thing. So I love that. It's so important for those conversations before you get to the house, or before you get to the buyer's consult, because you understand how to communicate with this person.
Yeah.
One of our scripts really fast.
Yes.
So from the, any questions we get on that compatibility phone call, right? If I don't know you, I've not earned the right for that information most of the time, right? So like some of their guard is like, dude, I just don't know you. Like you're asking all these personal questions. Why would I give you that? And I used to say this, I'm gonna give you 2 ways. I'm gonna tell you the way that I say it now, and please write it down because it's incredible. The first way used to be, I want my urgency to match yours, otherwise it feels off. Because it did feel off. And if you didn't go to the real estate revolution thing that was last Friday, you should start going to those things because you learn stuff like this. It's saying the same thing that I was saying, but in a different way that they can understand better, okay? Question that was asked is on a scale of 1 to 10, if we found the right house, how likely are you, 1 being low, 10 being high, to buy that house, okay? The reason you're doing this is gonna open them up to answering your questions because now they understand why you're asking the questions. They actually get it. If you're at an 8 and I think you're at a 3, right? You're gonna think that I'm lazy, but I'm just not matching your urgency. If you're at a 3 and I'm at an 8, you're gonna think that I'm pushy, which I'm not, but we just aren't on the same page. If you're at an 8 and I'm at an 8, now we're rocking and rolling. Most of the time when you say that or some semblance of that, they will start telling you because they understand like, oh, you actually need to know this stuff. Otherwise, this is just not gonna work. It's like, yeah, like you're gonna hate me for one of these 2 reasons. I will try and defend myself in the moment, which you're not gonna care about. And then here we are.
So you mirror match. Love that.
And you're establishing trust.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest part of building rapport is they have to trust you. Awesome.
So question, I like your idea of finding out whether someone's committed or not before you go on the listing appointment. However, I would not ask someone to sign a listing agreement before I meet with them. So I have a hard time doing things that I wouldn't do, and I wouldn't sign an agreement with you without meeting you. So I want to do things that are comfortable for me and that I would want to be on the reciprocating end of.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of finding out where you stand before you even show up, not only to know how to show up, but also to know, you know, and then also to Trey's point, you got to match their personality. So what do you think a hybrid of those 2 approaches would be if I don't want to sign the listing agreement until I'm face to face with them, but yet I do want to find out how committed they are to actually listing their house with me? What do you 2? Because obviously you 2 are opposite ends, and I want to be somewhere in the middle. So what do you think's a good strategy to be somewhere in the middle?
I would say, I'll be short here. It's being very direct and asking them, right? So that's the other side of my personality is similar to Blake. We do things very differently, but we both are direct about it. And so on that phone call, I want to hear what they have to say so I can decipher the code, right? But then I'm going to ask them very directly, cool deal, are you interviewing any other agents for the job to sell your house. And most of the time, if it's not like a real sphere, close friend kind of situation, they'll just say, no, we're not talking to anybody else. You're a guy. Great, sounds good. If they're kind of in the middle and they're a little bit warm, if you will, or cool even, as far as your relationship with them, they'll say, yeah, I'm thinking about interviewing some other people. Like you talked about earlier, great, I love knowing who my competition is. There's a ton of great realtors out there. Who else are you talking to? And just so I know I'm not stepping on anybody's toes or whatever it is, and either A, they'll spit out 2 or 3 names and you'll know, okay, this person's gonna talk to a lot of people and it's gonna be a data miner, basically. Or B, they'll kind of fumble around and they don't actually have names. And what they're trying to convey by, if they're one of those people that say, can't really spit out the names, they're not really sure, what they're trying to convey in my mind is, I want to talk to you, but I'm not really 100% set on making this decision. And so what I just found out by that is, okay, this person likes to analyze things and they like to think about their options and know all their options before they're making a decision. In that case, they're probably not going to be somebody who's super comfortable with signing the listing agreement based on the phone call or Zoom. I don't know what you guys do, but they may be less apt to sign that listing agreement before you get out to the house and talk to them about all of their options. But you know right away, if they say, nope, you're our guy, cool deal, awesome, I'm gonna send you the paperwork over now, you guys review it and sign it if you feel comfortable, or we can talk about it at the house and ask questions there. I guess it would be kind of a hybrid deal there, because I'm kind of old school and I've gone back on my ways of signing listing agreements and buyer's agreements if we have a legit buyer's consultation, which we always do, sorry. But getting them to sign in person, because I think it's easier for me, especially depending generationally who you're talking to, or personality type, who you're talking to, that they're not great with technology. I can sit there and read the contract to them in writing in person and explain everything. And I can go as slow as I want to go, or as slow as they want to go, because if it's up to me, the direct side comes out and I'm like, boom, here you go, sign it, great, let's go. I would be the person that would sign the listing agreement after the phone call with him, but having it in person, being able to go through and talk about everything, especially with the changes that are coming. And I know we'll get to this too, but facing that head on and having those conversations head on is, I mean, it just makes it so much easier there. Back to your point, I don't establish price before having a listing agreement signed. I have a price range, and I do that specifically so that I can say to them, hey, here's our price range. Here's the active comps right now, but we're not listing for a month. I don't want to determine a price until we know what our competition is the day before we go on market. So here's your range. The day before we go on market, we'll jump on the phone and we'll look at what's actively listed, so we know that we're the best priced house compared to our competition.
And then amend that agreement with signatures.
Sure,
Initials.
whatever you do there.
One thing that I would like to brainstorm maybe with everyone is, I like what you said. The only thing that I wouldn't do is, I feel like I don't want to ask someone a question that may encourage them to do something that I don't want them to do. So like you said, are you interviewing other agents? Like, I would want to find that information out in an indirect way without specifically asking them, because I feel like the people that you have that kind of stutter when you ask them the names, those people weren't thinking about interviewing another agent, and maybe you introduced that thought that, oh crap, maybe I really should talk to more than just Trey. That's what I would worry about if I said that.
I've got a response, but I'll let you take
Yeah,
it.
as I want to play with this for a second, because it's gonna sound contradicting. These things are both true at the same time. So it's not or, it's and. What you're talking about specifically is things that you're not comfortable with. They would be comfortable with it. Some of them would be. And to the confidence point, you need to have a thing that makes you feel comfortable so that you can feel confident. So it has to happen. Not everyone responds or has the same needs that you do. And so we've been here, we've talked before, so I'm gonna jump into this really fast. But when you say, I don't want them to go there, I don't want them to get to that place, I would say, you need to let them go there. So like, you need to let them explore these options. You're walking them through so they can make the decisions. You're not doing anything more. And hopefully at the end of it, they make the right decision, which is signing with you. But most of the time when you're just asking the questions, they'll go, because I know you, I follow you on Facebook, you're super positive. If someone was to say, I don't know that this is right for me, like, because you're asking the right questions, you're not gonna push. You're gonna explore it, you're gonna figure it out, and then they're gonna know why they will or won't. And if you can help somebody get to the point of them making a decision, in my opinion, you've won. Whether they say yes or no is irrelevant to me. I need a lot of yeses so that I make money, but whether that one person says yes or no, doesn't really matter. But like, jump into those things. So the questions that you have where it's like, if I ask if they're working with another agent, what happens if they go work with another agent? We'll show them right there why you shouldn't. Or why they shouldn't, because if they've not thought about it, you're already giving them things to think about. And like, this is just the beginning,
Which is value.
which is totally
Things to think
valuable.
About or value.
If you can show someone how to think, you've won. Like if you're just seeing them answer your questions and you're saying like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, yeah. Like you're winning. You're totally winning. And so if they say, well, I already have an agent that I want to work with, like, cool, so there's no room at the table. That's one of my favorite things. So there's no room at the table. You're definitely going to use them. Most of the time they'll be like, well, I'd be open to it. And like, if you can get them from, I don't really know, or I didn't have that thought because I didn't know, to no, I had the thought, that's an important thing to be thinking about. And he helped me solve it. And I got to give the answer. Like, dude, I'm signing with you every day. Every day.
I think the other thing, and this is so much easier said than done. So take this, that I'm not a perfect example and I don't do everything perfectly every time. And this was kind of a gut check for me because I'm saying, if I don't want to tell somebody to go explore other agents, is that coming from a place of, hey, I'm just the best option and there's no need to, don't waste your time? Or is it coming from a place of, a lack of confidence of, I don't want them to go explore something because I don't want to lose this business. And that's a hard question to answer. I would say the real unemotionally attached answer would be, it's probably coming from a place of, I don't know that I feel prepared, right? And let's go back to question number one, is if we're prepared, we're confident. And if I'm truly the best person to help them, I will win against the two other listing agents that they meet with, or whatever it is, right?
I don't disagree with that point. I just think that there are people that reach out to you or that you get connected with that haven't even considered talking to someone else. So like, why would you want to introduce that thought into their mind? You know, not that you're trying to keep them from other agents, not that you think you couldn't beat other agents, but like if Shanna's my best friend and she refers me to you and I reach out to you, and then you mention, and I have full confidence in you because Shanna does. And then you mention to me, have you talked to other agents? Are you going to? Then all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, I hadn't really thought about that. Like I just relied on Shanna. Shanna knows you and I have full confidence in her. So I got full confidence in you. But now now you've introduced doubt in my mind that I should use you. Whereas maybe I was already 99% there as long as you didn't come across as an arrogant.
Yeah, sure. No, and that makes perfect sense. I think that, and I might be naive on this, but if you're gonna interview other agents, you're gonna interview other agents.
Of course.
And so by me asking the question, make up a number here, 95% of the time, if I ask the question, you're still not, if you weren't going to interview other agents, you're still not going to. If you were going to, you're going to, and me asking the question doesn't change that necessarily, maybe 5% of the time. But it's not gonna change it enough to where it's gonna make me lose 20% of the deals that, or leads that call me. And the benefit of knowing for me up front is more valuable than not putting that thought into their brain, I guess is how I would think
I
of that.
see it, it's interesting that he said he sees it as that he planted that seed and that it would mean one thing to him. Because if somebody said that to me and I wasn't thinking about it, I would immediately go to, oh my goodness, he's looking out for my best interest. You know, I didn't think that I should interview, but you know what? Maybe I need to, but I'm still gonna put more weight on you because you were leading me down a path that I probably should have taken. I don't see it as, so it's just the flip side of that. So I think it's just a different personality and our clients have those different personalities. I would put more faith on the person who helped guide me in the things I needed to do. So then I would be like, well, they weren't too afraid to tell me that I should look at other people and they were confident in what they gave me. And I may still choose not to interview, but it wasn't, I may choose to or not to interview, but mainly I'm gonna give you kudos for being willing to tell me, hey, who else are you interviewing?
So really fast, sorry.
Go ahead.
Both of those people exist,
Yeah.
right? So you're not gonna win 100% of the time with anyone. It's not possible. If I tried to make it a math problem, I think when you ask that question, you are winning more inconvenience than doubt shows up. So it's not, will you plant doubt? You might, and they might wanna go look at other things. You're already showing that you're competent, and I believe people value convenience right now more than, oh, okay, well, this guy seems good enough. He came from Shanna, this makes sense, maybe I should, but like, I really don't want to, like, he seems like he's got it, I'm just gonna do this. I believe the convenience will override the doubt.
Well, and I think your point of you getting 93% of people to sign before they've met you bears out that point right there.
And the 7%, I know 2 or 3 of them, they actually couldn't sell. Like, so I actually think it's higher. But when we actually sat down and we did the net proceeds, it's like, hey, we need to sell for a price that's not attainable for you to actually do what you want. Now I get to follow up with them for the next 2 years, right? Because that's the plant of the seed and that's to do the thing. But then when I call them back every month, I'm establishing more. And it's now the doubt's gone. Like, the more you do what you say you'll do, the doubt disappears. But if you don't know them, they're gonna doubt you regardless.
My only point, and I'll wrap up, I didn't mean to go so far down this side hole, but to your point though, like, I don't think as an agent, I am confident, I am competent, I can help someone, I can do a very good job. Why, I still can't wrap my mind around why I would want to suggest that they talk to someone else. Like, if I have doubts and I don't think I can help them, or I really think maybe I'm not, I mean, what you said about how you would mention it to someone and then they may go visit with other people because you mentioned it, but you're confident that, like, why would you even want to go down that path?
So there's a really big difference in recommending.
Yeah, suggesting versus asking the question.
Yeah, I would not suggest they go interview
Yeah.
more agents, but if you ask the question, are you interviewing any other agents? I'm not suggesting they do it. To me, it's a fact finding for who are they? And if they say, no, I'm not, I would say, that's amazing, that's awesome, and I'm so glad that you trusted me. So I would have a follow-up to that. I'm not suggesting that they go, no,
Yeah.
but I think that it does show a competence and a confidence when somebody asks me, who is my competition? Because for me, competition is like one of my high strengths, and I want to know who I'm up against. And if my client, that's one of their high strengths, for me to ask that means that they know I'm gonna win. Cause I'm not gonna lose. So I just don't see it as planting a seed of doubt. And I'm definitely not gonna suggest that they call 3 other people or 2 other people, but I'm gonna ask because I wanna know who my competition is.
Just so everybody in the room has some context. He sells real estate.
Yeah.
He sells a lot of real estate.
A lot of real estate. He's amazing.
Well, and in defense, I am the analytical person. I'm the analytical
Right.
person that both of you are like, oh my God, like, what did I just get myself into? So like, when I'm on the other side, like, I'm over analyzing what someone else may or may not do. And obviously not everyone's as analytical as I am.
And here's the deal.
Both ways work really fast. I wanna make sure I say that. Both ways work. That's the one thing I want everyone to take out of here. That works, this works, that works, what you do works, what you do works. Just have to be going on appointments and having conversations with people. Sorry.
And I think one more thing, and then we can wrap it up, but the personality type that's gonna say, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that, is gonna be a high S personality. And I didn't mean for this to be a disc profile class, but the C, right, they're already gonna be analyzing stuff and looking at stuff and knowing that they should talk to other people, right? So it's not a C analyzer, it's an S that's a structure and stability personality. And as soon as you say, and let's say they go down that mindset of either you say, are you gonna be talking to anybody else? And all of a sudden in their brain, they're not talking to anybody else, by the way. But in their brain, they go, oh my gosh, should I talk to other people? 2 solutions to that. A, this line that gets thrown into buyers and sellers consultations is, I might not be a fit for you, right? And if you're an S person, you're like, thank goodness, he said it, I don't have to be combative, right? But then me as the agent says, and you might not be a fit for me, right? And you as an S person that wants to be a people pleaser and wants everything safe and sound, you're like, oh my gosh, no, now I want to work with them more. I don't want them to not like me, right? And so there's a way to come back with that from a sales technique. Not that we're trying to be sneaky or deceptive to anybody, because that's not what this is about.
So I'm being clear.
And quite frankly, then you put an S personality in front of me that is structure and stability and all that stuff, which I can do, I can accommodate that. But then if they say, no, oh my gosh, who should I talk to? I'm like, okay, oh boy, this person's not my personality type. I'm gonna give you 3 recommendations to go talk to, and then I'm gonna go ask those people for a referral fee, so maybe I don't have to work with them and I still make money. And that's a joke, don't actually do that, but
But
you
if
know what I
it lays,
mean?
if it lays it up,
Like,
I think
yeah.
that's to your, all your points here is, in this room, there's some people that are like, I 100% am on what Nate's saying,
Mm-hmm.
and yep, I would definitely feel the exact same, and then there's people that are polar opposite, and that's what's so great about this community, is that you're gonna hear from all these, and they're all right, right? So no matter who you are, there's not one just clear-cut system to how you do this. And that's what makes this industry so cool and so unique. And that's where your value kind of comes out, because your personality gets to come out, right? So.
And if you've not taken that DISC profile assessment, please call these guys up and take it. And then also understand how to spot what your client is. The conversation's a lot easier to have if you understand the conversation they hear. Because it's not what you say that they hear, they analyze it and they hear according to their own personality. And, you know, you can call it mind game, whatever, it's psychology 101. If you understand a person's personality, you can understand how to talk to them, even if it's not yours.
Which helps you get them what they want.
Yes.
It's everybody hears sales and it's like, how can we go sell, right? But it's understanding motivation, which we'll get to here in a little bit as well. But if you can understand motivation and communicate what you need to communicate to them, that's how you help. It's that simple.
Go ahead, sorry.
I actually have a question for Blake. Do you directly, I'm sorry, my accent, do you ask them, would you sign a listing agreement with me, or you just send it to them and say, please sign it?
So I'm gonna answer your question with a question. Why wouldn't I do that?
Well, yeah, I'm curious just how, because you know, that we ask everything.
Well, just like the way that you said it right there is perfect.
Okay.
Are you against signing? Because here, please remember, they can fire you at any time.
Because you also could say like, I'm sending you the listing agreement, please sign it. Or would you say, would you sign it? Would you like to sign it or something like that?
So that's the close part, right? So you hear people talk about the close. So after you've talked about them, you've figured out needs and you think it's gonna work, you have to ask for the business. Like, that's what that is. So however you wanna ask for the business, there's 50 ways that you can do it that work. But the thing that has to be done every time is you just have to ask for it. And if they say no, and this isn't, in my head, it is not so that I can convert you, it's so that I can understand where we're at. Because if they say no, cool, why is that? And if they say, I really want to talk to my wife about it. I'm not the guy that's gonna tell you to be like, okay, we'll close them, get the wife on the phone, how do we do? I don't know, like, cool, when's your wife get home? Are there any questions that she's gonna have that I can answer for you, so you can answer the questions that she might have? And I'll call back later this evening or tomorrow. But like, let them know you're gonna ask for the business, because you know what they stop doing when you tell them, hey, I'm gonna ask for this, by the way? They stop freaking out because they already know you're gonna ask for it. There's not this awkward moment where it's like, okay, here you saying all the right things, but like, are you just saying that so I can get to sign the thing? Or like, let's get it signed as fast
If
as
I
possible.
can add to this, that's the question we get all the time is, well, how do you ask the for sale by owner for the appointment? How do you ask them to sign the listing agreement? How do you get that cold buyer who wants to call you, Julie, right? And say, get me in a house. How do you get there? However you feel comfortable getting there in the most quick, direct manner possible. And if you don't feel comfortable, you need to practice it over and over and over until you're comfortable, right? There's no magic word. I mean, okay, yes, Phil Jones says there's magic words. Go read the book. It's a great read. However, there really isn't any magic words. It's understanding who you are and who they are, and how can I say everything I need to say in the most direct, quickest way manner possible. Boom, go, say it. Just like you said, it was perfect. Just like you said, it was perfect.
That's all I was gonna say. The way that you just asked the question, just do it at the end of the conversation and you crushed it.
Here's what's gonna happen next. I'm gonna send you this document. insert the rest of your words that are authentic to who you are. If you go in and you try to say what I'm gonna say, it's not gonna work, right? I can't go in and say what Carrie's gonna say. That would sound not me, right? And you're hiring me, not somebody who's trying to pretend to be Carrie. And I think that's like the biggest thing that I get from almost all these trainings, and especially being in productivity coaching, is that everybody wants to know what the magic words are to open all the doors and do all the things.
People will call out your inauthenticity. Say that real fast. They will sniff out the BS. So don't be the BS. So when you're not being you, you're being the BS. So if you want the client to trust you, they have to know that it's you. And if you is, I'm just a direct human, they're not expecting you to be different. Even if that's not their style, they're expecting you to be you. But if you're a real high S or high D, and then you go in there real, they're gonna sniff out the BS. So just be you. And if you mess it up, the beauty is you can try it a different way. And maybe not with that client, but with the next one. I think we are not in the game of we do it once and it's the perfect way and we do it that way every time. I don't know about you guys, but I've had to do it a million ways of Sunday. And I have to be willing to flex myself, not who I am, not who my personality is, but my game. I have to flex my hustle sometimes based upon that client, but I'm still me. And I'm still gonna love you when we leave, and you're still gonna know exactly who I am. I just may have had to change my approach for you, but I don't change who I am. I don't change my words. I don't change my approach necessarily. Well, not my approach to who I am, but I do change maybe my structure for you.
So I want
Does that make sense?
I want to make sure we have time for all the questions, but I want to, this applies for everything we're about to talk about.
Yeah.
This was very, very helpful for me. There's a huge difference between objections and obstacles. Okay, if you're having the conversation up front, it is an obstacle. You're trying to figure out if this works for us. Right? Well, no, because I don't want to do that. Okay, well, I need this. Okay, if they're willing to work with you, like, that's awesome. You have somebody you probably want to work with. If you have somebody that's digging their feet in the entire time, you probably, if you need to work with them, work with them. But most of the time, if you spend the time on that transaction lead generating, you'd probably be fine. An obstacle happens ahead of time. Okay, objections come in a transaction because you didn't handle all the obstacles. Okay, so like as you're talking, how do we overcome obstacles? And when they give you an objection, the dynamic just changed. Because now they have an issue with something that you didn't talk about. But I think the minute you have the paperwork signed, that's how I view the difference. Because after that, we've already had the conversation. I told you what I need. I'm supposed to know what you need. It is an objection. Hey, you said we weren't gonna do this. And it's like, oh, okay, shoot, that's true. But an obstacle is, I don't wanna sign the paperwork because I'm not comfortable. Okay, how do we overcome this obstacle for you? Is there anything that I can do? And when you're that open, people will tell you. You do have the people that are like, there's nothing you can do. Find another person. Like, this only works if you're lead generating enough, right? Because you can move on to the next thing.
They only feel uncomfortable if there's still questions that are unanswered.
Yeah, if they're not signing with you, it's typically because they have more questions. So just get there faster, right?
Ask it and ask if they have questions.
Yeah.
Hey, does this all make sense? Do you have any other questions of any of the things we talked about?
I'm so sorry.
No, we don't. Great. Do you feel comfortable signing this and committing to work together?
If you're gonna
Yes or no,
serve them, you
right?
have to give them time to tell you where they're uncomfortable. You have to. Like, and that, this is the hardest part. Like, our job is to literally walk into uncomfortable conversations all the time and hope we come out of it. But if you give them the opportunity up front, everything goes so much smoother afterwards.
I just want to make one note. I gotta make one note because we actually had a lot of stuff that was pulled before you guys even came. And we've already started to kind of answer a lot of these questions. So like, best way to close the listing presentation, well, you kind of already said it, right? You go through and then you're asking for the business. You have to ask them, because if you're not asking, then you're not getting the business anyways, right? For presentation skills, I do want to talk really, really fast. You have to practice. Like, you have to practice in the mirror, practice on a friend. Like, I know it sounds silly, but like the more that you're practicing a presentation, just like if you're coming up here to teach, like we are like we wrote content and stuff for this like over a week ago.
Out the window.
Well, but like you have to practice and you have to write it down and then you have to continue it, right? Like that's the only way you're gonna get better. So I just wanted to make a couple of those notes and I know we've kind of a little bit.
We've answered, does everybody feel like we've kind of hit this a little bit? With this current, how you would handle that buyer?
Kelly, did
No?
you feel like?
Yeah, we haven't really talked about that.
Okay, I thought,
I would say
I
no.
was there in my head already. I got there faster.
I have answers for all of these and the other questions that we have.
Yeah, let's keep going, because right now we're already at over an hour into this and we only have about 40 minutes left.
Okay, Why
So,
don't we do, yeah, we'll do that and then we'll hang out for as long as
yeah,
anybody
love that.
else.
and you
Love
guys,
that.
and
wanna do that.
we'll workshop and like, I'll stay down here because I'm gonna go over command a little bit, like for a few minutes and just show you where you can
But
find these.
We definitely want to get the things that you guys came for. We want to get those answered and the conversation is so good. Like I thank you for those of you who are really participating and adding to it. And I really thank you guys a lot. Back on track really quick. What are the 5 most important things that you put in your buyer presentation? Buyer presentation. What are the 5 most important things?
So, I don't have a piece of paper that I bring, right? We could all be better and I need to do this and I need to have a piece of
You
paper.
do it
that I
in my
bring.
office.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
Oh, I do. I forgot about that. Okay. So it's conversations is what it is the 5 things that need to be in the buyer presentation, which is a conversation. About me, they need to know who you are and why you're okay to have your real estate license and not a crazy person.
About me.
Yep.
Okay.
About me and my team. And I think, I don't know if we talked new agent testimonials. So part of this is you're with Keller Williams, or you're with the best company in the world for training. You have the biggest agent alliance in this, Southwest Missouri in your office. You can go ask anybody for help at any point in time. That's your team. So about me and my team, buyer motivation and about buyer. So I want to know who they are. Same thing with the personality assessment stuff. I want to be able to have a really good read on what type of personality they are, so I know how to communicate to them. And I want to know what their motivation is for buying a house. Are they selling a house first? Are they buying it because they're pregnant? Are they buying it because somebody passed away? Like, what is it? Why are we buying the house? This is totally different than what they're buying. So motivation for why they're buying, and timeline for when they want to buy it. That's all kind of in the same thing within the 5. Current market conditions, this is the biggest thing right now. And this is how we handle the objections to commission conversations or how fast do we need to move, whatever it is. Your only job in the buyer's consultation within this realm is to educate. And this is why you have to be prepared and know what you're talking about. If you educate them, A, they will trust you and you will have less hesitation when signing the agreements. But B, you set them up for success and you set yourself up for success. The more questions you answer up front, the more you educate them, the less obstacles or hurdles or objections that you will have later on. So that's number 3 is current market conditions. Number 4 is buyer criteria. What are they wanting to buy? And then number 5 is the process in which we go and buy that and presenting the plan to them on how we're gonna get it done. So about me, about them and their motivation, current market conditions, criteria for what they're buying, and then the timeline. And I want to give them an overview. We don't want to confuse them, but we want to give them an overview of what the process actually looks like so that they know what to expect and how to expect it. This also, the process is also when we start talking about how we get paid as agents and then bring up the listing agreement, whether it's a buyer agreement or a seller's agreement there.
I do want to say one thing. So for your market,
Mhm.
current market objection, like stats and stuff.
Yep.
If you're not receiving the broker metrics from Landon every month, then you need to email him and receive that, because that is our current market every single month.
It's price per square foot. It stays on market. It's sold to, list to sold prices. It's everything that you need to know about our current market once a month.
And I'll go, I won't just talk about the house that they're buying, because I'm doing buyer criteria after this. I want to tell them, I want to teach them about the market and the market as a whole. A, it shows my competence, right? And it conveys that they can trust me because I know what I'm talking about. And then I go into criteria. So I can fill them in on the $100,000 to $200,000 price range. I can fill them in on the $1 million price range in our area. So they know exactly what's going on and they feel like they're part of the process and they're the ones making the decisions. And then they make the right decisions because they're educated.
I did write his email down there, but you probably can't read it. So, KLRW369@kw.com.
All right, Blake, same question. Anything to add to that?
I'm just really happy how this played out, actually. So I want to tie this together so you guys see that I'm not just talking about feelings and it's fun and all this stuff, okay? There's a difference between being effective and being efficient. Okay, efficient is doing things right. Effective is doing the right things. Okay? So when she's talking about conversations and systems, you need to practice the scripts. You need to know what you need to talk about, which is the numbers, which is being, and you're gonna practice that so you can be effective. Because I have really bad news for everyone. You cannot be efficient with people, you have to be effective with people, okay? Efficient with things, effective with people.
Ooh, that's good, write that down. Efficient with things, effective with people.
So everything that Trey's talking about is right and it's on the board and there is command and you have all these different things. Those are the things that you need to be efficient. I'm gonna say the things on the top 5 that you need to be effective. And it's not or, it's and. The first one is your needs. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record, which is awesome because I finally hit the ground floor of it. Well, the first one's confidence, we'll say that. But you can throw it in whatever order. Because you have to show up. If you're not confident, they're not gonna trust you. So you have to bring that. So whatever you need to do before that listing appointment, do it. So when you walk into it, you feel confidence because you have to bring that. The other thing that you have to bring is your needs, which is expectations. Okay, you have to bring those to the table so that they know what to expect. The next thing you have to bring is your questions, so you can figure out what their expectations are. And understand their need. Bonus caveat, you also need to bring silence. Because when you ask the question, you just need to be quiet and let them answer, and that can get uncomfortable really fast. You have to just be ready to do that. Fourth is documented systems to show that this isn't uncharted territory. Whether that's broker metrics, whether that's about me, whether that's about the team, that is the one thing that you have to have in there to be effective. Because by showing them that, you're saying, hey, I've done this before. It's not my first rodeo. It's not about if they look at it in detail or not. It's so that you have something to show them. Hey, this is what we do every time. So what we're walking into, I'll be able to tell you what happens next every time. So there's no novelty in it. They can see that they can get what they want by working with you. And the last thing is patience. Some listing appointments just last way longer than others. And it is so annoying. Because who knows, you don't know why they want to sell until you ask the right questions. And sometimes you might get somebody that says, my husband did all the finances, he passed away a month ago and I don't know what to do. You think that a listing appointment is going to take 30 minutes or longer than 30 minutes? Longer than 30 minutes. So bring patience because you might only have 30 minutes and you might have to step away to rearrange your day. But you have to be patient with them because they're new to this. And especially in this market right now, there's probably a need as to why they're selling. It's not just money. You need to figure out what that is. You gotta be patient to do that. Because sometimes they don't know how to articulate it and you're the first person that's asking the questions.
I watched the solar eclipse at a listing appointment.
That's cool.
Didn't want to do that at all.
Sometimes
They
we
had
do
a
things we
pair
don't
of-
wanna do.
But they wanted to watch
They
it.
wanted to
wanted
watch
to.
it,
Did you
so
get the listing?
you bet your rear end, I
Did you
got
get
the
the
listing and
listing?
we
Yes, you
watched the
did.
solar
And you
eclipse. They had a
watched
pair of
some.
glasses
Sometimes
for
we do
me.
that.
They
Oh,
pulled
they-
a folding chair into the backyard and we sat there for 15
They had a
minutes.
play date.
And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much stuff to do. And after a while, and after 5 minutes of it, I'm like, you know what? How cool is this that I get to do this? Like, this is my job,
Yeah.
right? And I get to
Yeah.
share this
I
moment
get
with these
to, I don't
people.
have to.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And,
Yes.
but it wasn't easy, right? The first 5 minutes of the eclipse, I was like, this is ridiculous. I saw this 5 years ago. I mean.
I know what happens.
Yeah, so.
Seen the ending?
yeah,
Okay, cool,
But
cool.
patience is, yeah, that's
That's-
incredible. Great point,
These
Blake.
are, I love this. I really do.
Mhm.
And I hope what you're hearing is that some of this stuff just doesn't matter, right? We get so inundated with, I have to know all these things. I have to do these and they have to be in this exact order. That's the beauty of this industry and that you're all independently owned and operated is you do it how you want. Steve's gonna do it how he wants. He might take some things away from today and go, you know what, that's a better way to do that. I can refine my system because I am committed to self-mastery. I am committed to being a lifelong learner. I'm always going to wanna up my game, right?
6 personal perspectives.
Hey, I'm a KW ambassador.
I want to emphasize the finding out what their needs are. I mean, it goes beyond just, I gotta sell my house because X, I'm getting a divorce or, you know, what have you. People love to talk about themselves. You know, when you meet somebody for the first time, they say, well, I'm Bob Jones, and you say, well, I'm Steve Cox, and and then you leave, and you're like, I can't remember that guy's name. It's just kind of inherent. So if you can back off and let them talk, and you're gonna find out so much more valuable information about their personality, how to approach them when it gets down to the nuts and bolts. I had a call yesterday with a potential new client, and the more we talked, the more, I mean, we didn't know each other at all, but it was a referral. The more we talked, the more common ground I found with this person. It was ridiculous. We knew a lot of the same people. The lender that I referred to him, his dad had used, so that went perfectly. I mean, by the end of that conversation, there was no doubt that I was gonna get this listing from this person. I didn't have to ask the question, you know, do you think you're gonna talk to other, there was just no way. It wouldn't have been appropriate, it wouldn't have been natural. So let people talk and, you know, find out more than just, well, I'm getting a divorce or, you know, my wife died. Just let them go, and it's gonna ease the pressure on all the other things that you have to bring to the table for them.
You're building the relationship. And that's the whole point of real estate. Real estate is about building relationships.
Yeah.
And then you take all those notes down, you put it in your command, and that way you have more to talk about in a year,
Yeah,
right? Unless, I mean, you'll
exactly.
probably be best friends with them and you'll hang out with them every day. But with that, you know what to talk about. So when you call them every quarter, you got something.
And please take notes.
And if you know through that conversation that you don't have that much in common, then you've got to change the way you communicate with them. They're gonna need a little extra of this or not as much that, you know, but man, let them talk, let them go.
Who are my chatty Cathy's in the room? Who likes to talk? Raise them high, back there. I know you too, Julie. Wait, wait. This acronym saves my bacon all the time. Why am I talking?
Yes. Oh.
There's so, I'm gonna get it tattooed on me because I like
You
to talk,
should.
right? And so sometimes I just have to center and go, why am I talking? Just close your mouth and listen, because they're gonna tell you everything
Everything you need.
you need to do. You just gotta slow down a little bit, right?
So relating isn't listening.
It's one upping.
Yes. So if they say something, you're like, oh, we have that in common. You're not listening. They don't think you're listening because you're relating. So like those two things are not the same.
Let that just sit for a second. It's good stuff, right, friends? Yeah. All right, gonna go into the tough question. How are you addressing the compensation conversation at your listing?
And please keep numbers out.
Unless you're gonna say like 15%.
I think this conversation is going really well. There's a few things that I think might get in the way and slow us down. Is it okay if I address those now?
He said it in the beginning, if y'all didn't hear that. He addresses this on the front side, because I'm gonna interrupt. You wanna know now, because you're gonna be effective with your time.
And I just
Say
have,
that again, like,
this is going really well. I think we have a lot of common. I'm enjoying this, but there's a few things that might get in the way and slow us down. Do you care if we just get those out in the open?
And then exactly what do you say after that, about the commission conversation?
So most of the time they say, yeah, totally. And it's like, cool. The first one is I'm a full fee, full service agent. We charge blank % with a transaction fee on top. Do you have any concerns about that? That's what we're gonna do. This whole lawsuit thing is a lack of expectations thing. So if you were having this conversation ahead of time, I've got really good news for everybody. Not a lot's changing. If you weren't having those conversations ahead of time because you didn't want to have the conversations, I've got really bad news for you. You're gonna have to learn the lessons that I learned the first year in the business. Like the lessons, you can't hide from those now, which is unfortunate. But it depends. It's not unfortunate, but that's how we're having the conversation. And if they were to mention a lawsuit or something like that, it just sounds like we might not be a good fit, which is not a problem. You've got goals and so do we. This is the point in the compatibility call.
Love that. Trey, you go about it a little different. How are you doing it?
Yeah, so it's at the end of the listing presentation, really, and I kind of blew through mine, but when I get to the house, the question that you get in there and what we've all done is you walk in and you stare at them and they stare at you. And you're like, well, where do we start, right? And a lot of people go to that, and this is not what I do, so let me explain this.
I was like, how are you getting all the listings?
This is not what to do.
I've signed them at 0%. Oh wait, no numbers. I don't actually do that. So taking control of the conversation right off the bat, right? Where do we want to start? Do we want to sit down and talk first, or do we want to see the house first? I always want to see the house first. Because that puts me in a position to be able to talk to their house specifically when we sit down and talk their marketing plan, because everybody's marketing plan is different, everybody's house is different. We've got to stage it differently, whatever it is, right? We've got to know, and the way that I like to do it is I want to know what I'm working with before I tell them how I'm going to work for them. And being able to talk tangibly in black and white about things is why I go about that. So we go see the house, right? So I get there, we've had the follow-up phone conversations. We get there, take a look at the house. I'm taking notes of all the things, and I have them, my line is, show me that you get to play realtor today. Show me the house as if I'm a buyer, right? So they get to point out all of the cool things. So I make sure that I know what to put in my marketing remarks. We've all had people call us and say, hey, why don't you put this in the marketing remarks? Why don't you blah, 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 put this picture up or whatever it is. So I get to see what they love about the house. So I know what to highlight and what to talk about, and all of those positive things. And then we're sitting down and we're going through essentially the rest of the presentation or the conversations, and in those conversations,
What does that conversation look like?
well, and it's essentially the second to last thing that I talk about, because I do their net sheet before I do the listing agreement. We talk through market conditions first, and then we talk about marketing plan, which has, we're not really talking, I say that we're gonna be pushing it out and advertising it to buyers agents, because that's where the buyers are. So I've already put it in their mind that we need to push this out to buyers agents. We need buyers agents involved. We talked about market conditions. Yeah, so essentially what I'm doing is I'm setting this up for them to understand. This is just what works best for me. Talk about market conditions. Where are we at right now, right? Days on market are going up. Inventory is going up. There's more houses for buyers to choose from. The stuff that's selling is priced perfectly and is advertised right. In order to do that, we have to get this out on social media and websites and blah, blah, blah. And we need to get this in front of all of the buyers agents. And then we go into, from there, I've told them our marketing plan already and educated them on the market. So now we just have to go through, and it's kind of, we're going through
You're
comps and
building
stuff
it.
like that.
He's
We're
going
building
through
it
the
up.
entire story.
And I'm educating everything, and then we go to net sheet before we go to the actual listing agreement itself. And in that net sheet, I'm already setting the precedence that my fee is 6%, right? And this is the one thing that people have no idea. They don't know how much title companies cost. They don't know how much, they don't know that they're gonna have to prorate their taxes at the end of it, right? They don't know that inspections are gonna be in there. So I go pump up inspection numbers, right? If it's a 1,200 square foot house, inspections is probably gonna cost them $500, and inspections are $1,000 inspections. What I'm thinking, I'll go put $2,000 to $3,000 for inspection purposes on that net sheet to show them what they're gonna walk away with at the end of it, of the whole deal. And I'm writing my
Why
fee
would
in
the
there.
seller be paying for the seller's paying for the inspection?
Inspection repairs, sorry.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
so I'm saying, hey, you have a clean house, even if it's totally messy and dirty. Hey, you have a good house, your inspection repairs should only be $20,000. It might be $10,000. I'm making stuff up here, so have fun with me.
It's all on
But
that net
I
sheet.
said, yeah.
Like you just go down. We have a KW net.
It's the
sheet.
net sheet, right? We go through comps, we look at price, and I say, this is what I would suggest for price. I'm not giving them the option to argue with me on price at this point. I'm just telling them my opinion, and I make that very clear. Here's what my mindset is. Here's what my thought process is. So at the end of this, if this makes sense to you, we can work together. Here's what I think it should sell for. Here's what title company fees are gonna be. Here's what I think repair costs are gonna be. Here's what my fee is. Here's what taxes are gonna be at the end of the day. Bam, take all that away from the sales price. and here's what your net number is. Oh, also, do you have a mortgage on the property that we need to take out of this too, right? So then we see truly what's going in their pocket at the end of this, because we are in part a financial advisor for them when it comes to these numbers. And by helping them through this conversation, you don't have to tell them what to do with their money afterwards, but we're helping them understand to plan for what they're going to have at the end of this transaction, so that I've already set the precedence of here's what my fee is. We're not having a conversation about it. Here's what my plan would be to sell your house. Does this all make sense? Great, sounds good. Does this number look okay to you? Yes, great, sounds good. Let's talk about the agreement and the specifics in the agreement, because there are a lot of other specifics in our agreement than just the commission, right?
Something I'm hearing is you have them saying yes to you over and over. You're questioning them, but does this look all right to you? All right, we're not having any other side conversations or questions. They've already agreed that his price is what his price is, and I can still walk away with the money that I'm walking away.
Mhm.
We humans like to overcomplicate every single thing that we do. We also like to take that 1% of the population and bank everything on the fact that they're all gonna be this certain type,
Mhm.
right? Carry on.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and I like to control that whole conversation from the beginning to the end, and this is I gamify this a little bit in my brain. I'm a firstborn child, so words of affirmation and acceptance are a huge thing to me, and I have issues around that probably, but it is what it is. At the end of the appointment, do what?
Thanks for sharing.
You already knew. You knew this already. At the end of it, if my favorite thing to hear at the end of a listing appointment or a buyer's presentation, and I say, that's everything I've got for you, what questions do you have? And they said, I don't think we have any. That would, you explain everything really well. That's like the coolest thing in the world to me. And I can go to sleep happy, and I'll throw a little party afterwards in my truck driving back to the office. But being able to control the conversation where I can hit all the points of, because we know what questions are gonna ask, right? Like, we know the things that are gonna be issues. And if I can hit all of those before they have the opportunity to ask it, I've educated them on everything, right? And then we can go back and I'll give them the option, like we said before, what questions do you have? What concerns do you have? What have we not covered? Because I want to make sure that we cover all that now, and I'll tell this to them. I want to handle everything up front. And again, I think as we've talked, this is your line, as we've talked, this seems like everything's going great. I really like you. It seems like I would like to work with you. As long as you don't think I'm some crazy psycho here, I think that we would be a good fit together. Do you have any concerns about that? Or do you have any questions about my plan and how I see this going?
Can I sprinkle stuff on top of that? Is that cool?
Please.
Please.
So we're handling the conversation up front, he's handling it at the end. But I like that you explained the whole listing process, because it's the exact same for us. So the middle part's the same. When we're asking for the compensation and handling that is what's happening at a different time. And so as we're sitting down, number one objection I thought we would get, or obstacle we thought we'd have to overcome, is that they're not gonna come to the house because they're gonna not want to sign paperwork, because I wouldn't, so why would somebody else understand what's going on? And long story short, what came out of my mouth, which I'm gonna say relevant because I went to the real estate revolution thing, was you're totally in control. Like, you can fire me whenever you want. The issue is, you're gonna want me to drive. So in order for me to drive, there's a lot of information that I need, but I'm just driving, you're still in control. The minute that they know that, then I get to go to the house, I get to see the stuff, but I'm actually doing the same stuff. And at the end, we've already talked about price. So then it's just live date, it's the marketing teams coming out, this is what happens after the listing appointment. And then, like, the only thing we have to do as a team is do what we say we would do. And so it's the same process. So I don't want anybody to think that I just send that and then that's all we do. No, we send that, then we do all of that because it's still needed. You still have to see the house, you still have to know everything. We just handled the compensation part at the beginning and end.
I know at one point, there was a lot of conversation about making the net sheet required for compliance and closing out the file.
Did that hit ALC?
Yeah, it has, but I haven't heard anything else about that for a while now. And so I don't know, has that been backed off? Because if you're not doing a net sheet with your client, you need to be. So I'm hoping everyone in this room is going through that. And I would encourage you to do it in a formal way, like you guys are talking about, you're documenting it. I just don't know if that conversation is still being had about it being required for the follow-up.
I don't know about it being required. I know everybody I talk to, I push it out because I think it's such a valuable tool to use that net sheet. I don't like surprises, right? I don't want surprises along the way. I don't want to know that you got a lien on this property as we're closing. And it just addresses all of that stuff and all the numbers, which end of the day, that's what they're looking at, is that bottom line. They don't care what the compensation amount is, if that dollar amount at the bottom makes sense.
But one caveat there, make sure that it has a disclaimer about this is an estimate. These numbers
Yes,
and figures
and-
may change,
Yes.
because you don't want to get yourself where you told them they were gonna get $1 million and now they ended up with 400.
Right, because the repairs could cost more, the title company could cost
The sales
more.
price may be less.
Yeah, so it's just, and when you're reviewing offers, pull that net sheet up again and plug and play the different numbers. The net sheet's just there to, as a design to help you. So part of my presentation would 100% be that net sheet.
That'll be in your email today.
Yes.
Is it something you're going through with them like during the appointment, like literally doing the math then? Or is it something that you've already got filled out ahead of time?
Doesn't matter.
So you can do it either. If you get the information ahead of time, do it with them so they can see it.
And it's a spreadsheet. So you can literally just,
I think
Torian and I
KW
just
has-
went through one where it was just like, click, click, click. He's like, whoa, okay, cool.
And I want quick caveat, if you're gonna try and do anything that we're talking about, the only documents that I'm sending ahead of time are the broker disclosure and the agency agreement. Seller's disclosures, lead-based paint, all the other stuff, we're going over in person in the house. Because I'm not trying to send them all the documents to sign. I'm just sending the two that I need you to sign so that we have an agency agreement and then I can work for you. So it's not sending everything, it's just those two documents that we're sending. Everything else we're handling at the table.
I used the net sheet for the first time about 2 months ago with 80-year-old clients. And I cannot imagine going forward not using that sheet. So if you guys aren't familiar with it, because they are wonderful people, but they're older and they're scared and they're this and they're that. And when you have it all laid out, it just, you could just see, okay, I get this now. And you can refer back to it 3 weeks later when they're like, well, I thought no. If you remember, we went over this on this net sheet, it's right there. And, you know.
It helps the analytical and the non-analytical.
Exactly.
Because the non wants to just see the bottom line. They don't
Yeah.
care about all that
Yeah.
other stuff.
But
Yeah.
they're the ones who wake up in the middle of the night going, what did they say?
Uh-huh.
And if they have it, it helps both.
And I've always explained all the different fees and costs and potentials, but I'd never just written it down or had it written down in a sheet to actually show people, and it's a total
We
game
have,
changer.
we have a great example to send out, because one was made that's KW approved, that's what I'll call it. And so if you can send that out, because if people are not using it, if you don't take anything away from today, add that into
For sure.
your flow.
Yeah, so, and the two things, what you're doing versus doing it in person and filling it out before you get there. You can fill everything out. The two things that I would leave blank and fill out there in person are, number one, the repair costs. And that's, it sets you up for the inspection process with your sellers. Like, it's a breeze, it's cake, because you've gone and told them that repairs are probably gonna cost $4,000 on a $200,000 house, right? And most of us, and coming off of COVID times, there really wasn't a whole lot of long inspection lists that we got from buyers, but $4,000 on a $200,000 house, like, that's a high inspection.
I'm gonna build it really fast. 1% of the sales price is what we do in our net sheet. Just to estimate for repairs, like, that's a lot. I'm like, oh, we don't use it.
Yeah, so what I like to do is I fill that out in person and I pump it up a little bit to set expectations high. Because then you get an inspection list back that costs $2,000 and they're like, oh my gosh, we made an extra $2,000, right, on their net. But being able to show that, hey, here's what I see that's wrong with your house and here's what stuff's gonna pop up on an inspection, so you have those expectations set ahead of the inspection process. The other thing is the mortgage part of it, so that you can really show them like, hey, you're gonna net $120,000 from the sale, but you also have a $90,000 mortgage still left on this house, so really you're only getting 30. And by getting that information, if you ask me over the phone how much I owe my house, I'm not gonna tell you, because I think you're going straight to lowball me, right? And by showing them that, hey, this is why I'm doing this net sheet, is to show you exactly what you're getting. I'm not trying to jerk you around or anything like that. Here's what your net amount is before you pay off your mortgage. By the way, what do you owe on your mortgage? Just so I can write this in here as well. So then you do get a good idea of where they stand. And if we can't go below a certain number, we can't go, like, right, if there's a mortgage for $100,000, we can't sell that house for under $100,000. They can in a different way, but.
Summarize everything that's being said about net sheets, is it's showing what you're getting, it's minusing all the expenses for the seller, so they see what they're walking away with. That's the goal.
And that's what they care about. They don't care about what their house sold for. They care about what they're walking away with, right? All right, so in the interest of time here, I'm gonna kind of just hit some of these if that's all right. New agent testimonials, we kind of hit on that in the very beginning, right? If you don't have a testimonial, what do? Like you don't have a transaction, you're brand new and you want to build them.
I went on to Zillow and had a bunch of friends just give me a review on Zillow, letting them know my character and who I was as a person.
Because they've worked with you at some capacity, right?
Yeah, or even just friends and family. I mean, like,
Friends, family, another agent, like, let's say you've been here for a year and you only got one or two, like, I would give you a referral, not a referral, a testimonial to your character and who you are and why I would think it would be great to work with you. So ask your friends, your family, your raving fans, people who already know, like, and trust you and want to see you succeed. And then as you get some transactions under your belt, then start adding them in. Make sense? So is that question answered?
one quick thing on that too, actually, I just lost it, never mind.
Okay, cool. Buyer cold calls. Did we kind of agree that you just gotta say what you gotta say? When you go to a doctor for the very first time ever, and you go up to that front desk, what do they have you do?
Long questionnaire.
A questionnaire. So are you expecting to have to sign something when you go to see a professional?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think if you're inviting them to come to a consultation, strategy session, listing presentation, whatever, that they don't think that you're gonna have them sign something that's gonna talk about how you get paid?
Sure.
Did we switch industries? Are we a profit or nonprofit business?
Profit.
Okay, good to know. It comes from a contributing heart and a servant's heart, absolutely. But you're here to make money, yeah? Yes?
Yeah.
I hope so. Okay. So why are we ashamed to talk about how we make money?
Can I jump in really fast?
Please,
Sorry.
I get fired up about this.
So you need money. You have needs, there's certain things that you have to have. If you think people don't like you, that's the reason you're not getting testimonials. You have people that like you, call those people. I forgot what you said, what were you talking about just a second ago?
This is a profit business and that we need money
Right.
and that they expect you to say how you get paid.
Let's go.
It was just so good.
What's the question?
I say this a lot, so I hold multiple professional licensures. I hold a pharmacist license, I hold a real estate license. And so I've never looked at this as if I'm asking somebody for money. There is a compensation for my services. And I sometimes will tell people, hey, your attorney is professionally licensed. Your doctor is professionally licensed. Your pharmacist is professionally licensed, and so am I. And if there's ever any time, I mean, your hairstylist is also professionally licensed. I don't probably go down that road, but what I'm saying is that I'm vetted and there's no question about, am I worth what I'm about to ask? Because I hold, and that's a part of my confidence is that I'm a professionally licensed person. And no one would not expect to pay their attorney, their doctor, their lawyer, or their psychiatrist, their whatever, who also is professionally licensed.
Who asked the question? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Wasn't it you, Kelly? Buyer
Was
cold
it
calls?
Kelly? Okay.
Can you ask a specific question, I guess? To make sure that we're touching what,
I feel like it's been answered.
Okay,
for
cool.
what I
For yours?
wanted.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
perfect,
I remember the thing.
do it, go.
What you're trying to do is connect with people. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay,
No.
I was like, I saw nothing. Everybody was like, okay, maybe people disagree with that, which changes my answer completely. Or my statement completely. To connect with someone, you have to have your needs at the table and they have to have their needs at the table. So if you walk into these listing appointments thinking that you don't need money or that you don't have things that you need to get done, you're gonna convert at a slower pace. When you show up and they're like, well, it's 6%, it's like, yeah, dude, I'm trying to send my kids to whatever, like, I'm trying to use the money for these things, totally. What would you say if I said that at the table? Like if you're objecting to how much I make and I explain what I'm gonna use the money on? It's hard, because now you're bought into what I'm doing. And I'm trying to figure out what you're doing so I can buy into that, so we can connect and collaborate as we move forward. So whether it's a cold call or the comfort convos, talking about NAR changes, like you're just trying to connect. So if you don't have opinions on stuff, get some. Learn when to use them. Don't just run around telling everybody your opinions, but like being the person that doesn't have an opinion on something, like, how am I supposed to connect with you? Like, can we role play really fast?
Yeah.
Give me no hobbies. So what do you do for fun?
Go to work.
Yeah, but like when you're not at work, what do you do for fun?
I go home.
Yeah, so when you're at home, what do you guys do for fun? You and Jeff do anything fun?
I don't have any hobbies.
So you drink wine, Shannon.
I'm dying right now. Like I have all the hobbies. I want to talk about me.
So did you guys see what happened in that conversation? The only thing that I can do is ask questions to try and connect. What else can I do? There's nothing more that I can do. So if your job is to connect with people and someone says something, have an authentic answer.
Ask more questions.
Yes.
Well, yes, you need to ask for questions, but more so like, definitely. More so you have to be someone that can relate or connect, which means you have to have hobbies, you have to have something. Oh, I like learning. Oh, it's like, okay, I can't, what do you like learning? Oh, just everything. I'm an open book. What's a fun thing that you learned? Oh, there's just so many things. What's the, okay,
That
so many
conversation
things,
would
what's
drive me nuts.
and you're trying super hard, but so it is our job to overcome those things, whether they're buyer or seller. It is not their job to know that. As agents, it is our job to have those things so that we can communicate and connect with them. Does that make sense?
Does it make sense to you guys?
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
So
Everyone had none?
not to take these questions and to like make them feel little or unimportant. I just want to make sure that they're answered. Do you feel more comfortable with the changes? Probably not. So what do you need to do? If you don't feel comfortable with what's going on,
Yeah.
practice it, right? Practice what you're gonna say. Call me, practice on me. If you guys want to do a mock listing presentation, come to my house. I'll let you do it, right?
Well,
So-
and also with that, make sure that you're coming to team meetings. Like, we're gonna continue talking about the new contracts and stuff like that. We're gonna continue talking about that for the next month. Like, we're gonna have them, Jim and Dawn, they're gonna have their part, and it's gonna be going over this again. So make sure that you're coming to these things and educating yourself on it.
One of the biggest pieces of the listing presentation or buyer's consult is being able to explain the contract. If you can't explain the contract, all of your trust, even if you've gone through all of the market stats, if you've gone through all of market conditions, all of that stuff, I've sold 12 million houses in the past 6 months. That's awesome. But if you can't explain the contract and what it says and what it means, your validity goes out the window.
Well,
You have
especially
no
now with
trust.
the 3 compensation
Right.
areas.
Right, got the retainer.
If you've not looked at it, there's now, it's divided into 3, and if you're not well versed on what all 3 of those things mean, the first and the last, the retainer and other compensation, you are gonna get tripped up and you are gonna look incompetent, because the middle is the same one, that compensation. But that retainer fee being added, and then, well, what is other compensation? If you can't thoroughly articulate the difference in those 3 things, you're gonna get eaten up by some people. So I would tell you, get real comfortable with that section, which is the thing that's most uncomfortable. Talking money with people is usually uncomfortable for people. So get comfortable with that.
Because otherwise you're not gonna make any money.
Yeah.
I mean, that is point blank. If you can't get comfortable overcoming your own thoughts and feelings around that money conversation.
And if you don't know what I just said, you better go get some sample contracts
Right.
from upstairs. And you better go sit with Jim or Dawn, or go sit with somebody to go through that with you.
Everyone got an email last night with every single document, okay? Plus the recording from Tuesday.
Just go
If-
read them.
Yeah, just read it.
That's the biggest thing.
over,
Just read it.
them over and over.
It's not a good read, but it's a read nonetheless, and it's not that hard to follow. And then you summarize it in your own words, which is articulating what it is. They don't want you to sit there and read line by line. They want you to say, and this section covers this, and this section covers this, right? And then you can get through that as fast as slow as you want to, but the best way to start is by reading it. And then once you have read it, ask some questions about it.
Can we go really deep really fast?
No, we don't have time for that.
That'll be really quick.
Okay, hurry up.
Okay.
You get a minute.
Simon Sinek says this and it's awesome because it's true. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Yes.
Okay. if you're afraid of having these compensation conversations, you need to get clear on why you need to have them. Because they're going to be uncomfortable. Like it's not gonna be comfortable doing that. So you can make sure that you're competent and you're using the resources that KW provides. But in order to actually have the conversation, you need to figure out why. And if it literally is money, that's fine. But be very clear as to why you have to go through these uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah. Steve, if I can, the best thing that because people ask me a lot about this, people that aren't interested in buying or selling real estate, they're just curious.
Yeah.
I have an elevator pitch, right? You gotta get your elevator pitch of what are the high points of what happened and what are your thoughts behind it? And why do you feel like things aren't actually gonna change, right? My go-to is, it's always been negotiable, right? We had some bad eggs out there, some stuff happened, blah, 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 and then on with it, right? Once you nip it and say nothing's changing in the fact that we're gonna weed out some people, I'm not gonna go into the whole thing, but y'all know what I'm trying to say, right? Is you take what happened and you put it in your own words, short and concise, and get through it onto the next thing.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
And be able to actually explain it, short and concisely.
But know what you're talking about, right? Like the BS meters, they will go off if you don't. But my biggest thing is I sit here and go, I don't even know how this thing made it to court. It's always been negotiable, right?
Here's the change. There's no change to how much we can get paid. That has always been the same and it's always been negotiable. What changes is how we advertise and where we advertise how much a buyer's agent is getting paid. There is one more step in this process now, which is that a buyer's agent has to call the listing agent to ask if the seller's agent is offering any broker's compensation. And if they are, we figure out what that agreed upon price is and we move forward and we write it into the contract. If they have not agreed to pay a buyer's agent compensation, then I have two options. I can go back to my buyer and see if they are willing to pay that out of their pocket at the closing table. If they are not willing to pay that, then we can go and write that into the offer and ask for the seller or the seller's agent to pay that side of it. The third option is not a great option. However, if we're being a true fiduciary, this is what we will do if our client wants to buy a house and they cannot afford to pay us, and that is the house that they have to have and we know it. I will release that buyer from my buyer's agency agreement with them so that they absolutely get what they want, and I will find someone else to go help and make money from.
I just saw everybody's face go, shit.
Do we think he's practiced this?
Yeah. If you haven't practiced this, there are places where you can go to practice it. If not, and you get cornered by that question, say this, are you considering buying or selling? Why do you ask? They will not ask any more questions. So like if you're trying to get out of it, what about the lawsuit? What about other things? Well, it depends. Are you a buyer or seller? Most of the time they're like, and then you should.
They heard something and they want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right?
But if
And then
you're
you get to
not feeling it-
educate.
You'll be surprised at how many people know nothing about this. by
A
the way.
shocking amount.
So
know nothing
Amy
about
and
any of
I,
this, just
we've
so you know.
decided we are gonna ask them what they know about the market, and if they don't bring this up, we've not really changed a huge amount of what we do in our business. The forms have changed and we're gonna go through them the same, but it's not changing a ton about what we do. We've always explained it. It's always been negotiable, and that's what you hear from so many people. So the big things aren't changing. How we write it up, how we explain it. Probably the biggest part that in our conversation that changes is with buyers, because we've always had a compensation and a buyer's agreement. Now we have to add the layers of who's gonna pay it, and it's my job to try to help negotiate that the seller pays it on your behalf. That's my job as your buyer's agent. But so our conversation is definitely changing on the buyer side, but on our listing side, we're going to approach it probably pretty close to the same way we always have.
We have about 10 minutes left. I want to make sure that we're answering any questions. If there are questions, go to these classes. These two are very plugged in. I'm very plugged in. If you're trying to figure out
Come see
how to
us.
say it, come talk to somebody. But you're not going to learn anything in 10 minutes. It's very complicated. It's not complicated. How to speak to it and speak it eloquently is
Is
good.
this recorded?
Yes.
Go back and watch that, because it has been practiced as far as how I explain it. Go back and watch that and write it down and practice it and copy it.
Write
If
down
you
on a
want, or
sticky
change
note.
it, do whatever you want.
Put it in your car. That's literally what I did. for
I mean,
the-
that's how
the
you
longest
memorize
time.
things.
Yeah.
So if I'm
Right.
driving to an appointment, if I'm doing whatever, it is right there. I looked at it for a year and a half, so I understand. I made the notes shorter and shorter and eventually I didn't need it anymore.
Or just record yourself and then listen to
You
it.
do that too.
So do we feel like we've kind of hit this then?
And then I'm gonna hit the last one.
Nicole gets the last one. Before we go into there,
Yeah.
do you have any questions that are just pressing that we can't just tag them later? Oh, thank goodness.
Love it.
Did you get something out of today so far?
Yes.
I hope so. Can we say thank you to our guests for giving up 2 hours of their time? Appreciate it.
Thank you.
These two, and Carrie, you're on the ALC. You're good. Go, go, go. They're on the ALC.
Yeah.
Go talk to them. Go meet with them. They're wealths of knowledge, all right?
They all
So-
have offices here.
Yeah, they do.
All of them.
So I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Nicole and she's gonna wrap this up. And it sounds like we may need to have a second
Yeah,
class.
we plan on doing some more of these. Now, one thing that I do want to kind of express, and we're talking about being learning based and everything, and we talk about your value, right? Because when you go to these appointments and you're talking about like, this is about me, this is why I'm doing this. It's again, establishing trust, building a relationship, because you're sharing why you are wanting to help them find a home, sell their home, whatever it is. So these 5 classes, we have, or well, 4 classes, and then of course, productivity coaching, that we do have these in our market center, like throughout the year. We just had QL last week with Rachel, and she will be doing it again before the end of the year. But I also know that within Ignite, there's a really great exercise that's like finding your big why, and it kind of goes through it, okay? So I'm gonna send that to you guys today too, because if you haven't got to that yet, Ignite After Dark is starting, I believe, in August. So I know Shanna's got the information for that. So then that way you can go watch that. It's a recording, it's played nationally. But if you are wanting to get into Ignite faster, because Ignite is not gonna be back, I don't believe we're gonna have it until October, because we're about to step into Bold. Bold is another really great place to find your why, who you are, also learn the things that you need to learn to get leads, to make sure that you are feeling more comfortable with these conversations. All of that, okay? I do have some Bold First Steps. So Bold First Steps is August 6th. It is free. The first one is free to go to. We do have scholarships. So I would love for you guys, even if you just come to First Steps and you're like, I don't think I can do this. We also have payment plans. If you are a first time attendee, then you can earn half of it back. So then that way the cost, just so you know, it is $7.99. You can earn half of it back. So then it ends up being $400. Like going through this class and making sure that you are doing the activities in it, you will come out with a transaction. As long as you're doing the activities, you have to put the work in, right? So I'm gonna leave a few of these like up here. Just fill out your name. This is just for First Steps. You are not committed to the whole thing if you are not signed up for it yet. August 6th, Relics Event Center. Already talked about that. 6 personal perspectives. Wes did teach that a few weeks ago. I'm sure that we'll probably have it sometime here. They tend to do some that are like online sometimes, but there is always some like within our region. Any questions on this?
Is the 6 personal perspectives on the Keller Williams Greater Springfield?
No, we do not record those because KWU trainings cannot be recorded. Just like yesterday, we did not record the open house training because those are KWU, KWRI. So we have trainers that actually train and like travel for that. And like they are compensated for it because that's their time and they have, become masters of it. So we do not record those. Yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay, cool. Now we're gonna talk about where to find buyer and listing presentation templates. Of course, my favorite is KW Command Designs. I'm gonna show you a little bit of that. The other ones I do like to show is Canva. So Canva is basically the same as Designs, but it's just got everything, right? It's not specific to real estate. We use Canva a lot just because it's got a little bit more wiggle room with some design features. However, KW Command Designs is all branded with KW, so that way you are also making sure you are compliant. But if you want to get a little bit more artsy with it, you can always go into Canva. Etsy, you can purchase, which Etsy is like really inexpensive to purchase off of. Like if you're wanting templates and stuff, it's like a few bucks. So you can go on there and find some that are kind of more your aesthetic. I'm a very big aesthetic person, as per my disc. So I like things to be a certain color and everything, like my iPad matches my computer, like all of these crazy things, right? So, if you want something that's more fitting your brand, you can always find them there, Canva or Designs. Questions on any of that? Before I do, I will give a brief little demonstration on how to find those and how to edit them. Yeah, question, Kelly? No? Okay, okay, you were just like, yes, I needed to say something. Okay, cool. Well, this is gonna be like our workshop time and then our little thank you, so. Thank you so much for coming. However, I am now stepping into a different realm. I'll try my best to be like Donnie, but nobody can be like Donnie because he's amazing. Okay, so if you do have your computer, go ahead and log into, bye. Thank you, Blake. Go ahead and log into KW Command, agent.kw.com, right? And if you don't have your computer, no big deal. You can write these notes down and go over it later. Or if you already know this. Okay, so this is our homepage right here. And we also have these little widgets over here. If you click the KW, it does pop that bar out. So if you have not memorized what those widgets are, not a big deal. Then I'm gonna go down here to the little designs. It's like a little paintbrush and like paper, I guess. So I'm going to click that, give it a second. And then I am gonna go ahead and create a design up here in the right-hand corner. You'll notice that throughout Command, anything that's like creating or adding or anything is usually a wonderful turquoisey blue button. So I'm gonna click Create Design, and I'm gonna do Print because I'm wanting to print this, right? Now you can save it in any manner that you want. You can save it as like an image and stuff like that, but most of the time we're going to be printing it. Click that. Designs does take a little bit because it is a third-party company. We have a lot of third-party companies that are imported into Command, which is awesome because then that way it's not holding it all in one place, right? Why?
That's what I've got
I'm
too.
getting an error too.
No. They must be updating it. So Mega Camp is coming in the next 3 weeks, and they usually do a lot of, I think that they're changing it actually. I think we're switching from rebrand. Well, this was really fun. Apologize, technological difficulties. However, since Mega Camp is coming, they usually do a lot of updates and imports and stuff right before this because they like to showcase that whenever we have those big conventions. I am so sorry that I couldn't show it. But you do know that if you go to, I know, you do know that if you can go to like Scott Leroy Marketing, I always recommend his videos. He has them that's personalized per widgets. So you can also find those there. But you'll notice like I just went to create, print, and then you will find listing presentations in the sidebar on the left. Well, I was really hoping we could actually workshop that. But if you took notes on some of this, I will be sending out a recap email with, I'm gonna send the net sheet. Hold on, I made a whole bunch of notes.
Now maybe.
It is?
Mine pulled up, but
Did it?
the template, I should like reload it.
Let me try.
Valid dynamic link locked.
Okay, yay, perfect. Let's see how long it lasts.
This down, but only for 5 minutes.
Oh, dang it. Okay, yes, so then you are gonna go ahead and go down here to, I believe it's under Business Basics. No, where did it go? They keep changing this stuff. Oh, here we go. So it's right under listings. So we have listings and then listing presentation. If you click on that, there are a bunch of different designs in here. Now, you will notice that a lot of these are like multiple pages. You do not have to do every single page. Put in there what you actually want to talk about with them or what you feel like most confident, right? And like we said, if you're practicing it, then that way you have something, you're going along with your packet, it kind of helps you prep. It's the same thing with like whenever I teach, I like to have a presentation because it keeps me focused. That's going to help keep you focused on your goal that's there, right? My other favorite thing about Keller Williams is I know that we're like a digital world and like, we send everything out via email or we send everything out via Google Drive or whatever. But one thing I've learned at KW is majority of the time when I go to a training that I've like purchased or something like that, I leave with something tangible, right? And that's great because in that way I will always have that. If I have something in a digital world, if it's out of sight, out of mind, so that's always going to be with them too. So if you leave that presentation and they did not decide to sign with you right there, which majority of the time they probably will, especially if you're coming with everything that they talked about today, then you can always be like, okay, well, I'll follow up with you if you want to take this back to your spouse or your whoever is, you know, also in that transaction with you. Then that way they have something to share as well. And it makes you look really professional, right? Cool. Okay, I'm probably gonna stop the recording. So before we do that, any questions overall? Or any questions about this part? Cool. Okay, great. You just made me feel so good, just like Troy said. I'm just kidding.
I have two quick things to share. One of them is an adaptation to what Blake said that I really like, because I will admit that I have not had someone sign the buyer's agency agreement until 10 minutes before I'm having them sign the contract.
Okay.
Up to this point, obviously that has to change. So like, I'm just trying to think, okay, how do I overcome that in my own mind? Because, you know, I'm probably overanalyzing it, but how are other people gonna say? But anyways, one of the things that really caught that Blake had that I adapted slightly, and it's just that you can fire me at any point in time, but you're going to need me to drive. And in order for me to drive, I need to know that you're still in the passenger seat. Meaning, I need you to sign this because I need to work with you. And if you decide you don't want to work with me at a later point, that's fine. But during the time that I'm driving, I want to know that you're still sitting right next to me.
Right. No, and a good point about that too is, and I know Shanna has mentioned it, and I know it was mentioned probably on team meeting on Tuesday. You can get your buyer's agreement signed for just 3 days. Like if you're like, hey, you want to go see houses this weekend, I have to have this agreement signed. This is just something that is required. You can sign it, you can write it for 3 days. So then that way, and then you can always redo it and then be like, okay, well, let's extend this or do, you know, an amendment to it, right?
And see, I feel like, I don't think that's a good idea. Like,
Okay.
my goal in doing this though is there have been times where I just continue to spin my wheels and work and this other person is no longer sitting next to me.
Correct.
So like, my goal, and again, if you get that objection and like, that's the only way and you're gonna just not even have a client, maybe that's the right path. But I think for me, I just wanna know if it's gonna take 6 months to find a house, let's write this for 6 months or 9 months or something. And then if you decide you wanna get out of the car at any time, I'll let you out.
Oh, yeah, perfect. And that's, you have expectations, right? You're setting those up front. You have to tell them those things. They're not just gonna know. They're not gonna, then they'll be scared also on their end. And they're like, I'm in this contract and I can't get out of it. And I don't wanna work with this guy anymore or whatever it is, right? You set those expectations up front. So, cool, good. I love that. Any other ahas then? Cause that was kind of an aha.
There's a bunch of good verbiage said there.
Yeah, there is. And go back and rewatch it, right? I mean, I don't remember when it was, like an hour and 40 minutes in. But go back and watch it, write it down, whatever you want to do, record that part, and then just listen to it, right? Like, because I know a lot of people that they'll record either affirmations or like, oh, what are they called? Like oaths or something like that. And it's from Jordan Fried, I totally forgot what it was. But yeah, just go back and listen, like record yourself, listen to it, because the more that you listen to it, it's just like singing a song, right? You learn the song because you listen to it. And make it your own. Because that's gonna be more authentic and also building the relationship, establishing the trust. It's all the same stuff. Yeah. One more aha? One.
Relating is not listening.
Yeah, that was huge. That was a big like, oh, punch to my heart, because I am a very big relator and, you know, use the weight. Why am I talking? Why am I talking? And when you say that, then you're like, okay, I've stopped talking for that time for me to say it in my head, and then they'll continue talking, and it'll be great. So cool. All right, I love that. If you're wanting to stay, I'm gonna go ahead and just stop recording right now. Oh, we had a couple people online actually. Oh, nope, that was from Cassie. I grabbed it over there. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording, but you are all more than welcome to stay and ask me questions or anything like that.